Welcome back to the Nancy Levin Show. I am so excited about today's episode. We have got a fabulous guest, Sam Vander Wielen, with us. And if you have always associated attorneys with words like sharp, intense, and cutthroat, you are in for a down-to-earth breath of legal fresh air. Sam Vander Wielen is a leading legal educator who's helped over 150,000 online business owners set up their businesses legally. Sam's legal templates and signature program, The Ultimate Bundle, generate well over $1 million per year, making her podcast, On Your Terms, a goldmine for not only legal knowledge, but marketing know-how that actually works. Sam's brand new book is here. When I start my business, I'll be happy. A practical, no BS guide to successful online entrepreneurship. And in it, Sam presents her evergreen marketing strategies that led to her 7-figure success, as well as guidance on balancing building your business with life's curveballs. Welcome, Sam.
Hi, Nancy. Thanks for having me again.
I'm so glad you're here and that you're back. And what I'll also share with the listeners is that Sam has also been, for the last few years, she has come into Levin Life Coach Academy. Once our coaches are certified, she's come in to our alumni springboard to actually help our coaches be legally prepared for creating their businesses from scratch. And it is an invaluable part of our program. And I personally so appreciate you, Sam. I am grateful to call you a friend, and I also am grateful to call you one of my teachers. I love learning from you. I always discover something new in any of our conversations, and even simply from listening to your podcast, following you on Insta and all the places. And I'm really excited for our conversation today.
Oh, thanks, Nancy. I love teaching your community. They're always the best. So I'm excited to chat with everybody today.
Yay. So a few things about your book that I just want to sort of presence for everyone listening. And I love the title, When I Start My Business, I'll Be Happy, because it does immediately start dealing with the when-then situation. Or yes. And and we know that that's always a recipe for disaster. I think you call it the when-then syndrome in your book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so in this book, you really are offering a very candid personal experience of your transitioning from a corporate lawyer to a multi-7-figure business owner. You're dismantling this myth that starting a business will solve all of life's problems. And instead, you really present a very honest roadmap for navigating the realities of entrepreneurship. And in this day and age, when we see all the bright and shiny shit online about make $1 million overnight, your book is honest to God, a refreshing breath of fresh air and reality. I really want to say that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And, we have some of the same mentors or people that we have followed out in the world or been in programs with. And, yes, you're standing alongside of them or you're standing on their shoulders, however you want to say it. But I do want to say that there's something really different in your approach. And it's, you immediately show up in a way that has me know I can trust you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I really want people to know both, like you said, like the business, starting a business, growing a business. I mean, some of you might be listening. You're like, I already started a business, but once I get to 7 figures, like then everything's going to be golden, So I wanted people to know that it's not going to cure it. I also wanted people to know that there's more than one way. There are many, many ways to build an online business and really drive home this message that there are so many ways you can build it. And there are ways that aren't the most popular and sexy that you hear about on Instagram because it makes other people a lot of money to tell you that, but that there's actually a much simpler way to build an online business that allows you to have a better life. And I think ultimately make more money just as a side effect.
I couldn't agree more. And so, in the book, you're really, you are using your own story as a through line. You're sharing your journey, quitting law, facing health challenges of your own, grieving personal losses,
Mm-hmm.
and building multiple businesses. So it wasn't that you went out and the first business that you did struck gold.
No, my first one was technically a flop on paper.
Which is, I think, important for people to hear,
Mm-hmm.
and that you really offer a mix of, mindset shifts, business strategy, practical steps, which we all know and love, to create a sustainable, thriving online business. And, one of the you emphasize, you emphasized, I don't know, that, business success requires resilience, clear planning, a willingness to pivot rather than chasing trends or believing that financial freedom will automatically bring happiness. And so, at that point, again, the book's title is such a powerful hook. When I start my business, I'll be happy, but you quickly dismantle that myth. And you bring in, which I love, of course, because it dovetails so beautifully with my work around shadow and shadow beliefs, overcoming these beliefs that are in the way of us becoming successful in the way we want to become successful, and even defining successful individually. Yeah. And then, again, in the book, there's so much real practical information that I so appreciate. And I appreciate how direct you are, how insightful. And I'm just going to say, I do feel this is a must read for aspiring and current entrepreneurs, coaches, anyone in the online space who really wants to be able to build a business that aligns with their goals and without burning out or chasing the illusions of instant success. And so I really just sort of wanted to start there. And so talk a little bit about how this belief around when I start my business, I'll be happy holds people back from business success and from personal fulfillment.
Yes. There's a reason I had the cover artist for the publisher put a little question mark in like a squiggly hand drawing on the cover because I wanted it to have like an upward inflection. Like when I start my business, I'll be happy. Like we all like hope that will be the case. But I think there were so many things that came up for me when I thought about this was like, for one, that I think there are so many unrealistic expectations. I dedicated an entire chapter at the beginning to unrealistic expectations about not only like businesses resolving all your problems, or maybe it's not the business necessarily, but like getting away from your boss, getting out of corporate, changing jobs. Like once I have a different boss, I'll be good. Once I am in a different career, I'll be good. But there was also so many of these unrealistic expectations when it came to the online business world because of the marketing. And so there were these, I don't know, like false promises and some, I think, scammy tactics that were going on that made it look a lot easier and faster. And I believe that it's possible. I don't believe everyone is meant to be an entrepreneur. And I don't say that in a subjective way. There's no right or wrong, right? It's everybody. We all make like the world go round. I can't work in an office anymore. And then there are people that used to work in an office that we need, and they're doing really important work. But I do think that it takes, for the people even who it's right for, it takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of time, a lot of strategy, right? And because of what was going on in the online business world, it was like really wasted. But this other idea that kept coming up for me as I was writing the book was that it's a lot of pressure to put on your business to make you happy. And that I thought was really interesting. Like I approached it one way in the book talking about finances, right? That people come into starting a business and they're like, okay, I need to make $4,000 a month or something like this. And it's like, whoa, that's a lot of pressure on a little baby business. Like that's a lot. Do you understand how much you have to generate in order to be able to pay yourself that much? And like, how are you building yourself runway? And, I talk a lot in the book about how online businesses are, inexpensive compared to if you and I were starting a bakery in San Francisco, right? Of course, it's going to be way, way cheaper than that, but it's not free. And so there are investments and there are things you have to pay for, and you need to plan out paying your taxes and paying yourself and like building up what I call your business war chest over time. So you have capital to invest. And, that's a lot of pressure to put. So then it makes sense to me that you come out of the gates, you try to start this business, you were told on Instagram that you could make 10 grand a month in like 30 days, and it's not doing that. And now you have bills to pay, and you're like, well, this is miserable. This is not what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. So from there, the myth that we're presented with, commingling with beliefs and with imposter syndrome, with, with all of those pieces, can be a real challenge for people, even allowing themselves to be visible. I'm curious if you just want to sort of riff on that piece about, really taking the steps to visibility, really taking the steps to show up in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the way I think of this is that if we have any of these issues, let's just call them for lack of a better term, if we struggle to take up space, if we struggle to believe we're worthy, like all of these things, if any of that stuff is in there, which we all have this from some place or another, probably our childhoods, but we all have this in some form. It, to me, at least, I don't know about you, Nancy, but like to me, I'm like, entrepreneurship is only going to highlight that. Like there's something about entrepreneurship, particularly the way that we do it, where it's very personal. So we're like upfront, we're the face of it, it's visual, we're producing a lot of content that is either has our face directly in it or is our writing, from our heart and our minds. It's vulnerable to produce art, which is really what we're doing at the end of the day as content creators. And if you think that like you have all that stuff, but you're just going to be able to like, it's kind of the proverbial like throwing a blanket over a bunch of stuff before people come over or something like that. Like if you think you're going to be able to do that, that's not going to work. So in fact, I make the argument in the book that I think that having your own business is actually this like incredible opportunity to work along with that. Like for me, for example, it's very, very difficult for me to take up space. My mom was a malignant narcissist. The world was like, she was bigger than the world. And my whole life, my existence growing up was just being her little servant. That's what she used to call me. That was my nickname from her. And so you can imagine that as an adult, you grow up and you're very used to being, behind, right? And behind the scenes. Now you start a business that you chose to start and you put your face out there. You have to take up space if you want to do well, right? I have to act like I deserve to be there. I have to, really put myself out there and own my stuff. And it's very difficult to do.
Yeah. And, so everything you're saying, of course, is an integration into my work and working with these beliefs and commitments from childhood, the roles that we were put into play, and how we develop our sense of packaging ourselves to be palatable to those around us. Really, that the beliefs come down to some version of I'm not worthy. And then, yes, overcoming this to take a stand and to stake my claim in the world. And, right before we hit record, I was asking, how's the book launch going? And you said it kind of feels like planning a wedding. And, similarly, I think that I've told people before that whatever issues you have as a couple before you get married, marriage will only magnify them. And I think the same is what you're saying about entrepreneurship. Anything we've got going on with ourselves, personally, professionally, in any way, is only going to get magnified when we are willing to put ourselves forward. And to that piece, I want to talk a little bit about business entrepreneurship as a vehicle for self-discovery, because you talk about how entrepreneurship forced you to confront your own fears and limiting beliefs. So how can new business owners use their journey as a tool for personal growth instead of just financial gain? And this is something that for me personally, I also double down on, and I'd love to hear about it from you.
Yeah. This is a great question. So I think there's two ways you can go about this. One is more of the like offline approach that my business, for example, generates not only enough revenue for me to pay myself, but also gives me the flexibility and the lifestyle freedom that I sought to take the time to develop myself. So like, I don't always have to use my business to develop myself. Like, I think that's a common thread throughout my book, is talking about how like your business can be your business and it can be your job, and that's okay. I actually think that's quite healthy. And then it's like inadvertently, my business allows me to develop myself. I think my business provides me with tons and tons of opportunities where I'm like, oh, like that. I see that coming up, right? Like last week, I was in New York City to record the audiobook for my book. And someone said to me, someone in conversation referred to me as a writer. And I was like, I'm not a writer, I'm a lawyer. And then I caught myself being like, you just published a book with a big 5 publisher. I don't think you can stand here and say anymore. And that was my instinct of being like, oh, that's too much. Like, that sounds big.
Yeah.
That sounds like braggy to me to say I'm a writer. Like, that seems so serious, right? And I feel like writers like deserve to be called writers, and I didn't. And that, I don't know why, I had this story in my head. So that was kind of an opportunity, like, or an example, I guess, where my business had provided me an opportunity to say, hey, I know this about myself and this is something I want to work on. And so how do I balance this and like come back and say, yeah, you know what? I guess I'm going to have to, I made a joke that like, yeah, I'm going to have to get used to saying I'm an author now, you know, and get used to it. Yeah,
exactly. Like that, like taking that ownership and standing in that as part of your identity now. It's huge.
It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable, but I think that the business kind of keeps providing that for you. I guess it also depends for the listeners too, like what feels good from a content perspective for you. Like I love writing, so I wrote a book, but I love writing like to my email list, for example. It's like my number one favorite thing. And as we sit here now, I have like 47,000 people on my email list. Somehow it still feels very private. I don't know why. And so when I write those emails, like they're very cathartic. I think a tip I would love to pass on is that like my business is not my journal and it's not my therapist.
Right.
So I don't need my business to like deal with things in real time, like working my stuff out on my business kind of thing. I love sharing from a place. What's the phrase of like not from
wounds,
the scars?
From the scar,
Mm-hmm.
but not the wound. Yeah.
So I definitely share from scars often, but I use those scars as metaphors, and I always make the metaphor make sense for the business or for the business owner. Like, this is why this, like maybe I would tell the story about me being in New York and saying, I'm not an author, I'm not a writer, and how that was uncomfortable for me. And that I'm starting to learn that I have to take up space. I want to take up space and I want to own this process and I want to be proud. I'm looking for all these other people to be proud of me about the book, but I need to be proud of me about the book, right? And so I would tell this story and I would parlay that into like, that's what you need to do. You know, you need to be this in your business. How can you do this week? So always making it like a valuable lesson for them. And that kind of like, I don't know, that marriage of like being able to write has been very cathartic for me, but also remembering I'm a business owner at the end of the day and people look at things and want to know how it's applicable to them. And so I try to translate my experiences to how that might apply to their life.
I love that. And I will say that, you know, I have made a practice over the past year or so to really unsubscribe from a lot of things that I don't read and that I don't need. And you are in my very small handful of emails that I read every single. You did make the cut, and there's a handful that I really read because I also happen to know the people behind them. And I know that they're coming from a place of truth, authenticity, genuine desire to help and support instead of sort of that bright, shiny picture facing forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you probably know that too, because they've shared stories along the way that are personal. They've been vulnerable, right? They've opened themselves up, but sharing from that vulnerability of like, I've worked through this now, so now I'm going to share the lesson versus like using you as my journal to be like, I'm really struggling with this thing. And like, my husband never listens and he doesn't take the trash out. Like, people don't want to hear that stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mentioned, a little bit ago that you first transitioned out of law into health coaching. And then to what you're doing now, to legal templates and the business you've created now. And I'd love for you just to share a little bit about your experience of the pivot.
And
I have to say that I loved on your Instagram story when you were recording that you said, I got to say pivot like Ross on Friends. And I got a big chuckle out of that.
I was very happy about that. I was recording my audiobook last week, and one of the subheadings to one of the chapters is pivot. And I you have like all these people, and I'm just telling everyone else, like you have all
Yeah.
these people in your ears, telling. And so my producer Finley, she was in LA, so I couldn't see her, but I could hear her. And I said to her, I was like, oh man, I wish I could read this heading like Ross Geller from Friends. And she's like, go ahead, it's your audiobook. I was like, really? I was so excited.
I love that.
I was
I
very
cracked
excited,
up.
but
Yeah, I cracked up.
you have to make it fun. But no, it's funny, talk about like when I start my business, I'll be happy. I was classic for this. I was like, okay, I hate the law. Everything in my life that's a problem or that I don't like or that's causing me stress is all because of my boss, the mean people who run the firm, being a lawyer, having to do this work, the annoying clients, like everything was everybody else's fault. And so I thought, okay, you just remove that external stuff. If it's all their fault, then everything is going to be fine. And now I go to start my own business and I'm like, oh shit, like I think I might be involved in this because I removed everyone and I still feel the same way. But I also thought just not being a lawyer, was going to resolve it for me. And it was hard work. Like I write in the book, and I've talked about this a lot on Instagram and to my email list, that like sometimes there are things that you want the outcome of it, but you don't want to do the hard work of it to get there. And so I was somebody who I was like an OG blog reader and all this kind of stuff. So I love food bloggers, and my health coaching business was around people learning how to cook. And so I just wanted to be a successful food blogger, but I didn't want to do any of the things I had to do to get there. And so I had that very like naive wake up call. It was like, wait, you have to record all this stuff and take videos of every step of you cooking. And like, that's going to create so many dishes. And I just want to eat it. Like, I just love cooking. And oh, actually what I love about cooking is that it's the thing outside my job. And it's what allows me to unplug from my job. And now I've made it my job. So that actually made me really miserable. And I then though put so much pressure on this idea of like, I've made a huge pivot. I love being a lawyer. People judged me left and right for it. I judged myself. And now I've gone and done this thing. Aren't I going to look like a flip-flopper? Like I don't know what I'm doing. Like I'm just flailing around. I'm throwing my life and I can't commit to anything like that. That was a real fear for me. So it held me back from shifting into the legal business for a while.
And it's such an important point to make. Instead of, it's really a different approach than, do what you love and the money will come kind of way of looking at things.
Yeah. I don't know that I endorse it. I think about this, like, I'm like, I don't know that your passion has to be your job. And as I sit here today, I run this business. I've had my legal templates business since 2017. It's super successful. I don't love legal templates. I don't even love legal stuff. I love what I get to do though every day. Like I love the content I get to make. I love the customers I get to work with. I like designing digital products. I like all the marketing, my podcast on your terms. Like I love writing this book. I love what I get to do. So I think sometimes we get that like a little twisted. Yeah.
Right. I would agree. I would definitely agree. And then we try to essentially fit around peg in a square hole around that. And like you said, then the very thing that you feel passionate about becomes something that you dread.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not so fun. And then when that thing's like not performing well, it's now you've taken a passion and you've like metrified it, it's like, I don't want to look at stats for how many people viewed my video about some recipe that I just had fun making. So it's like, why now I've made this annoying. That's the way I saw it. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, what you're really talking about overall is, values and lifestyle and the importance of taking those into account as you are building your online business.
Yeah. You have to be really clear on that though, before like you can't let the business dictate that. And so I think that's again going back to those expectations of like going in and thinking that the business is going to resolve this for you or something like that. It's like my business is just like one piece of me. It's not, people always say like that they hope that their weight is the least interesting thing about them. And I think about this, like I think about that with my business where I'm like, I hope that my business is actually the least interesting thing. Like if you got to know me as a person, there's so much more that I have going on in my life, or I hope that there's so much, like sometimes it's been an invitation where I've realized my business is the most interesting thing about me. And that's a call for me to make some shifts.
So it's so interesting. I was having a conversation with a friend last night And, I'm very grounded, practical. I'm very driven by, doing what's in front of me. I, from my own childhood experiences, really disowned fun and play. And so there's been a big reclaiming of that I have been resistant to, but it's happening. And I said something, a friend said to me something like yesterday, well, what if you do this just because it's fun? And I said, I don't know that I've ever chosen to do anything in my life just because it's fun.
Yeah.
And I really sort of went to bed last night marinating in that and marinating in, the whole piece of, what creating a business makes possible for us when we're willing to act, when I'm willing to actually let myself have a life outside of my business, to really give myself permission to grow my life outside of my business, which up until now, I have actually really prided myself on being so focused in my business because I don't have a partner. I don't have kids. It's really easy for me to say like, well, my business, this is my thing. This is my relationship. This is my life. And it's only been in the past, maybe even I would say 6 months that I've really been willing to look at, what happens when I give myself real permission to infuse play and fun, and looking at it from the perspective of different kinds of desires.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to do. It's hard because you love your business, and I can 100% relate to that. Like I love what I do. I guess I reset and think like I want that to be a piece of what I love to do, right? Like that can be the whole thing. But maybe it's also the Scorpio in me, but it's like it satisfies this part of me that's like started, especially as my business got bigger and there were more eyeballs on me and a lot more feedback. With eyeballs comes feedback. So like careful what you wish for. But another part of thinking that your business is going to make you happy. Like people think when it gets big enough, you'll be happy. I'm like, oh, wait till you get Facebook trolls. And so I think there's this like Scorpio part of me too that loves having some privacy of like, I do all these things and have all these things in my life that nobody online would know about. You'd have to talk to me to know about. And that helps me stay really grounded. I think as my business has gotten more successful, that I'm just kind of like, yeah, it's like just what I do for work. And then it don't let my head get too big because also what we do online has this like weird, all these like metrics and social metrics and stuff like that. But also I think it allows me to healthfully detach and say, like, I write in the book, like, you are not your revenue. And I mean that whether or not you make $1 per month or $1 million per month, it doesn't make you a good person because you make a lot of money. It doesn't make you have a good business necessarily. I've seen lots of really poorly run businesses that make money and vice versa. And so, I think that's important to keep in mind as people are growing their businesses and doing this early on. Like, this is not one of those things that you're like, okay, I'll hustle really hard right now, but when my business gets to a certain point, then I'll develop myself. It's like, no, you do this all along the way. And actually, I think I would argue that it helps you to grow your business. Yeah.
I would absolutely agree. I mean, in my book, Worthy, the subtitle is Boost Your Self-Worth to Grow Your Net Worth. And I do think that there is a strong interconnectedness between the way that you are working with yourself and doing the inner work that is going to significantly impact the bottom line.
Yeah, for sure. And if any of you like to write, it's going to give you lots of stories.
Yes, exactly.
I write in the book a lot about how my mom always used to say, you have to be interesting and interested. And it was like, you have to work on the interesting part because you have to make sure you're unique. And like some people try to do what I would consider kind of silly, unique things to stand out, like doing something stupid on social media. But like, I really mean it. Like, I think if you are genuinely unique, like what's your, like, I don't know, the weird thing about you or this funny thing, like no one knows that you're obsessed with Pokemon. Right. And then you find this thing out about you and you're like, wow, I had no idea. I think it helps. Yeah, it
does. And I do think, I know that when I'm sharing different things with aspiring authors, it's also knowing the difference between personal and private, that we can
Yeah.
really share personal details, and yet we still get to keep what's private, private.
Yeah, for sure. I went this past year in 2024, at the very end of 2024, in October. I spent the whole month of October in Norway and then in Menorca, Spain. And then I spent the entire month of December in Patagonia, and I didn't tell anybody. So it's like awesome. I loved it.
That's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
amazing. I love it so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to talk just a little bit. I've emphasized that this is a very down to earth approach. That it's real. That it's true. It's not gimmicky. It's not. It's really about creating sustainability. We have an allergy to sort of those online business gurus who are telling aspiring entrepreneurs, I'm just going to say lies. I'm
Yeah,
just going
for
to
sure.
say it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that whole piece sort of combined with, I would say, what a heart-centered entrepreneurship,
Mm-hmm.
the struggle with the sales and marketing, or the struggle with not wanting to feel pushy or slimy. So it's like we see these gurus and we see the shininess, and then there's like a disconnect with, okay, how am I going to do this and have impact and reach people and be able to get attention without me feeling like I'm slimy and that I'm collapsing into something that I don't want to be. Just whatever comes up around that.
I am a big believer in allowing your audience, the people you're trying to attract, to have agency. Do not disempower them. So you are not holding their credit card down at gunpoint and forcing them to purchase your program. You are offering value, something of value. If they choose to purchase it because they need it, presumably, then that's on them. That's kind of the way that I like to think about sales in general, is like, first of all, working, I guess, strengthening my muscle of knowing that my product is really valuable and it's good and that it helps people. And so like that's first and foremost, is working on that. And if you can go to bed at night knowing that you've created something really good that really helps people, then you have to allow those people to have agency and empower them to say, if they've chosen to purchase this thing, it's because they wanted it. So you're not doing anything wrong by making sales or anything like this, as long as you're not, false promises or like offering bad information or something like this. Like if you're, I just think the more that you work on feeling really confident about what you do, it helps to relax. Like you have to keep coming back to this, like people have the ability to decide. They've decided they want to join or work with you or whatever. Let them do that, and then let them decide if they don't want it anymore, or they're ready to cancel or whatever the thing is.
So we touched on earlier that you have been building your business while also experiencing personal crisis. And so you share and have shared very transparently about losing both of your parents in a very short window of time.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, you were faced with brain surgery when you were beginning your business, basically. And so I'm curious for you to share a bit about managing grief, healing, and managing business at the same time. And how I think there aren't enough voices speaking out about what it's like to be still running a business that needs you, while you are also needing to give yourself time and space to grieve.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I mentioned too, I did an interview yesterday where I brought up this idea that I feel like no one talks about. It's like, I couldn't afford to not work. Like so many people were just like, oh, why don't you just stop working for a long time? It's like, I have like bills to pay and I have a life. Like, I don't understand. People were like, I would get some kind of hate sometimes. It'd be like, oh, you should stop working. And like, I can't believe you're hustling. I was like, first of all, I'm not hustling. Don't like, you have no idea how much I'm working or not working. But second of all, hello, it's a job. Like if you worked a quote unquote normal 9 to 5 job, you can't just stop working. So you would get your time off and then you'd be back to work. So it's interesting to me that, I don't know, maybe we feel some of that pressure of sorts, but I think that, so similar to everything we've been talking about, that losing both my parents back to back really, for one, reset my, priorities and values. If I didn't already have them straight, I did now. But it also pushed me to streamline things even more. So it really streamed, like my job day to day is marketing. I'm like chief marketing person, and so I created digital legal templates, 8 years ago now, and they're pretty much the same. I update them all the time, but they are pretty much the same thing that I'm selling now. And so my job every day is spreading the word, finding new people, finding new leads. And so I think losing my parents then caused me to say, where am I spending my time? And really simplify, like, okay, I need lead channels and I need nurture channels. And then I need to convert those people on those channels. So like, where am I spending my time finding leads? I was fortunate enough to have built up a lot of a business war chest. And so I invested a lot of that in ads, because ads was the fastest and easiest way for me to get leads without me being around. And I already had a funnel, by the way, that was converting extremely highly organically. So like, that's the only time, in my humble opinion, that ads make sense. So I was able to pour it in there. And then like, okay, where was I nurturing people? I was nurturing people all over the place. And so that got me to like focus and say, I want more long form content, less what I call toilet content on social media, where as soon as you put it out, it's boop, right down the drain and it's over. And when I do show up, I only show up with evergreen calls to action. So it's always leading somebody somewhere in my business that makes sense. And so it helped me to like really streamline that. But there was, boy, after my dad died, especially, like my dad had leukemia, for anybody who doesn't know. And so like and he was my best friend. And so when my dad died, that I've never felt a pain like that before. And I couldn't work for a while, and I had all my stuff kind of running in the background, but I really didn't know what to do. So talk about like sitting in that safety of, or the discomfort of what it felt like a lack of safety of being like, if I don't show up, this whole thing's going to go under, or people are going to forget about me. People will move on, or I'm probably missing all these emails or people asking questions and then they're not buying stuff. And just sitting with it and being like, you know what, it'll all work itself out. I don't know how, but this is all going to work out.
I mean, it's such a testament to when we take care of ourselves the way we need to give ourselves permission to put ourselves first. It actually is in support of everything else falling into place as well. It seems counterintuitive, but it's actually the right medicine.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, for anyone who's listening, who knows anything about grief, too, it's so much more physical than you anticipate. And so like the physicality of it. And I remember I was struggling really badly and talking to one of my friends who's a grief therapist in New York. And she was like, I was like, I don't understand what I should do. Like, maybe I should go to a retreat and maybe I should do this and maybe I should do that. And she's like, are you drinking water? Are you eating 3 meals a day? Are you getting sunshine? And like, let's like, are you sleeping? Like, let's just
go back to the basics.
Like, super basics. Yeah. And I wasn't doing those things, not on purpose, but like you just go through a lot. And so, yeah, even just sometimes just getting back to a little bit of square one and saying like, this is as much as I can do right now. And so maybe also I'm not in the period of my business where I'm expansive growth and publicity and all that. Like I was like, keeping things on deck. Like I was just keeping things afloat. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the other things that I want to hear you talk a bit about is this sort of legitimacy trap. You talk about your dad saying, not validating you leaving law and going into online business, the whole piece about where's your briefcase and all of this and, and then the clothes and the whole thing. Right. And, I get it. That we tend to think that online entrepreneurship may not be a real career or a real business. And there's a lot of skepticism. And I'd love to hear you just talk a bit about your experience with that and what you share. You share a lot in the book about that too, the breaking free of the external validation, how we can really confidently own our own unconventional paths.
Yeah. I coined him Uncle Larry in the book. I don't have an Uncle Larry per se, but I would say we have to stop convincing Uncle Larry at dinner that like our businesses make sense or our career moves make sense or that you can talk to people on Zoom and make money. Like we don't need to convince all these people. It's like we're convincing the wrong people. But I think what I've learned about online entrepreneurship is so interesting is that I see like actually as an industry, we don't accept ourselves. Like I think we treat it as if it's not a real business and then we expect everybody else to. So I think like it starts at home. And I find that very interesting. It's like that why do we I don't know, like when I get hate, for example, on running an ad or something, and I'm like, that is so funny to me that I'm getting only those mean comments from other business owners, right? So it's somebody who wants to have, conceivably, wants to have a business like mine. Do you write Target and complain to them that you see their ad on TV? Do you write Target and say, I saw your billboard 3 times when I drove back and forth to work today and I'm pissed off about it, right? Target doesn't close its doors when big things are happening in the world. There's no demand for them to not speak. Their commercials don't stop running. Like I don't understand the like inequitable pressure on online businesses from ourselves. And that I feel like would be like my first thing if I was president for a day of the online business world. That would be my first move. Would just be like, I don't understand. We have to accept ourselves, and so like that then helps to stop looking to our parents, our former coworkers, our friends. Right? I've lost friends. I've had friends judge me for what I was doing. I still get comments all the time like, "Oh, I saw you on YouTube. Like that's so funny that you do that." I'm like, it's not really funny and it makes a lot of money, but sure. And so I'm like, it's just, but I also don't need them to take it seriously because I take it seriously and I'm proud of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, 2 things that I'll just add to that. You know, one of the things is when we're fearing external judgment and criticism, all it means is we are already in judgment of ourselves. And so once we have worked through that self-judgment and we are no longer in that self-criticism place, that's when we don't have the Velcro for someone else's criticism or judgment to stick to. And we can easily say, yeah, like it's cute that you think it's cute. It makes me a lot of money. You do you. And then the other thing is, I always think about this. Reed Tracy, who's the president of Hay House, my publisher, he always says, you haven't made it until you've received a 1-star review.
I bet. I bet. I'm not looking forward to that, Nancy. I'm not.
Right? But then you've got to think, who are those people who are leaving the 1-star reviews? Who are those people who are trolling? Like no one who's going about like good, solid business in the world with good self-esteem is leaving those reviews. And so we also have to, look at it where it's coming from.
Yeah, as Brene, I mean, I always come back to that quote from Brene Brown about not being in the arena because it's just that so much of this applies where you're just like, Uncle Larry's not in the arena. Your friends are probably not in the arena. None of these people are doing it. The bad reviews, the bad comments, like they're not doing it. I mean, I've even thought about that a lot with the book because I got the book deal the day that my mom died. I got it like 3:00 in the afternoon. My mom died that night. It was a horrible day. I was like, yay about the book. I didn't even care, obviously. And then I go into, once they work out all the kinks with the contract, was only a few weeks. They're like, okay, you can start writing. And I'm like, what? I can't even function. So over the next year, I've just lost my dad. Now my mom got killed. I'm now sitting in a library, like staring at a blank cursor. Like, how am I going to pump this book out? And so I've worried, like, was this my best work? Is that exactly the way I'd put it today? Was there maybe some clouded, like I was upset, I was angry probably while I was writing this? Did that come through? Right. And I have all these judgments about myself. And then I'm like, well, what if people then don't like it? But I have to sit there and be, first of all, self-compassionate for myself to be like, how many people do I know who could have written this book under these circumstances? Like, as my therapist said, essentially under duress. And, and I understand what was going on. And once I read the book and, luckily I got to do the edits much more recently and had a fantastic editor and then did the audiobook, I was like, actually, this book is really good. And I think it's really valuable and it's going to be really helpful to people. And I'm looking at it through like such a critical lens, but I also know that I understand and I'm really proud of having created this thing.
I love hearing that. I love that you're giving yourself so much grace and
trying,
And again, the book is so real, so down to earth, so true. It really has a lot of heart. I really appreciate how you are willing to shine a light on yourself for all of us to be able to see your journey and to find ourselves in your story also.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope people feel really inspired to know that you can go through anything and build the business that you really want.
I love that. So again, The book is called When I Start My Business, I'll Be Happy. A practical, no BS guide. I like that Huddy just gave a little bark. He's welcome to. A practical, no BS guide to successful online entrepreneurship. And it is out right now. You can get your copy right now. And I encourage you to listen to Sam's podcast on your terms, follow her on Instagram, sign up for her newsletter, all the things. The best place to go is your website, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Yes. Go to samvanderwielen.com/book for the book. Yes, that would be great. And you can get bonuses. I am giving everybody a free email list builder course, how to add 2,000 people to your email list in the next 30 days, and also a seat at my book club. So for anybody who can buy the book right now, you can come join my book club live in May. I'm going to host 4 live sessions to walk people through each section of the book.
And I've already signed up because I already got my copy of the book.
So you can come see Nancy there too. Yeah.
Sam, I adore you. I appreciate you. I love to learn from you. And I just think you're all around a wonderful woman. And I'm really happy for the work you're doing in the world. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. All right. And to everyone listening, I'll be back here again with you next week.